Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Pakistan's newly formed parliament elects Shehbaz Sharif as the Prime Minister for a second time. Shehbaz beats PTI-backed candidate Omar Ayub comfortably. Former US President Donald Trump's dominance continues in Republican primaries. Trump wins caucuses in Michigan, Missouri and Idaho. And Israeli military says review of Gaza aid convoy deaths finds most people killed in Stampede. Adds review finds no strike was carried out towards the aid convoy. Our top story at this hour comes from Pakistan, where the National Assembly elected incumbent Shehbaz Sharif as the 24th Prime Minister of the country today, while his opponent Omar Ayub Khan of the PTI, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Party, failed to secure a majority. Despite allegations of pre-poll rigging and military interference, PMLN and PPP succeeded in forming the government. Sharif returned to the role he held until August, when Parliament was dissolved ahead of the elections and a caretaker government took over. Sharif is the younger brother of three-time Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, who spearheaded the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz PMLN party's election campaign. Meanwhile, Pakistan's former President Asif Ali Zardari and his rival Pashtun politician Mahmood Khan Achakzai on Saturday filed their nominations for the presidential election that is going to be held on March 9th. Asif Zardari from Sindh province is the co-chairman of the Pakistan's People's Party. Asif has the support of Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz. The new president will replace Dr. Arif Alvi, who completed a 5-year term last year. However, in the absence of the Electoral College required to elect the president, Alvi is still in office. 3 more Pakistani citizens submitted their nomination papers for the president's position as independent candidates. The scrutiny of the nomination papers will be conducted on Monday. Next, updates from the Israel-Hamas conflict as a Hamas delegation arrived in Cairo on Sunday to search for a formula acceptable to Israel and Hamas for a lasting ceasefire in Gaza after foreign governments resorted to airdrops to aid civilians in the enclave. A Hamas delegation arrived in Cairo on Sunday to hold ceasefire talks on Gaza. The delegation is being the delegation is being led by Hamas's deputy chief in Gaza, Khalil al-Haya. Hopes for the first pause in fighting since November rose last week after a previous round of talks mediated by Qatar and Egypt in Doha, and indications from the US President, Mr. Joe Biden, that agreement was close. Meanwhile, a senior US official said that the framework for a 6-week pause in fighting was in place with Israel's agreement, and now depended on Hamas's agreeing to the releasing of hostages it has held in Gaza since its attacks on southern Israel on October 7th. Israel's military has completed a preliminary review of civilian deaths at a Gaza aid convoy last week, which determined that forces did not strike the convoy and that most Palestinians died in a stampede. On Thursday, dozens of Palestinians died during a confused incident in the Gaza Strip in which crowds surrounded a convoy of aid trucks and soldiers opened fire.
The IDF has concluded an initial review of the unfortunate incident where Gazan civilians were trampled to death and injured as they charged to the aid convoy. Our initial review has confirmed that no strike was carried out by the IDF towards the aid convoy.
The United States on Saturday carried out the first of what it said would be a series of humanitarian aid drops of food into Gaza. 3 C-130 US military planes delivered more than 38,000 meals along Gaza's Mediterranean coastline. Jordanian forces also participated in the operation. The White House says the airdrops would be a sustained effort and that Israel supports them. U.S. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said that the U.S. will carry out multiple airdrops in the next few weeks, which will be coordinated with Jordan. Kirby also said that the Biden administration is also considering shipping aid by sea from Cyprus. The World Health Organization, WHO, delivered fuel and crucial medical supplies to Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital. According to the WHO, the aid delivery included 19,000 litres of fuel, as well as crucial medical supplies and antibiotics that could treat 150 patients. The head of the emergency department at Al-Shifa urged for further aid deliveries as the medical complex remains overwhelmed. The WHO delivery came a day after an aid convoy incident in the city of Gaza. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris will meet with Israeli War Cabinet member Benny Gantz at the White House on Monday, according to the White House officials. During the meeting with Gantz, Kamala Harris is expected to discuss the urgency of securing a hostage deal, which would allow for a temporary ceasefire, and the need to significantly increase aid into Gaza. So as Israeli troops intensified their ground operations against Hamas, the army struck dozens of Hamas targets in the southern Gaza city of Khan Yunis. The Air Force and artillery hit about 50 targets within 6 minutes, destroying several infrastructures. Khan Yunis has been a focus of Israel's military operations in recent weeks. A ship attacked by Yemen's Houthi rebels has sunk in the Red Sea. The UK-owned Rubima cargo ship, which was attacked last month, is the first vessel lost since Houthi began targeting commercial shipping. A Yemeni government statement said that the ship sunk on Friday night and also warned of an environmental catastrophe. US military Central Command previously said the ship was carrying more than 41,000 tons of fertilizers when it came under attack. Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu led the East African nation in paying last respects to the country's second president, Ali Hassan Minvie, who succumbed to lung cancer on February 29th, aged 98. India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, sent condolences to the family, government and people of Tanzania. DD India's Isaac Lukando has more.
A state funeral was held at Aman Stadium in Zanzibar, where local and foreign leaders honored Mwinyi's contributions to Tanzania. In a social media post, India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, joined the numerous voices honoring the statesman, expressing deep sorrow over his passing. Dr. Jaishankar said India has a deep appreciation and respect for his exemplary leadership and contribution in the advancement of India-Tanzania relations. Mwinyi, who became president at 60 in 1985, succeeded Tanzania's founding father, Julius Nyerere. In 1989 and 1993, he visited India, strengthening ties between the two nations. Credited with transitioning Tanzania to a free market economy, Mwinyi introduced multi-party elections, despite many Tanzanians preferring a one-party state. His body was laid to rest in Mwangapwani village in Zanzibar on Saturday, where his son, Dr. Hussein Ali Mwinyi, currently serves as president. Isaac Lukando in Dar es Salaam, reporting for DD India.
In Tunisia, thousands of members of the Tunisian General Labour Union gathered in front of the Prime Minister's office in Kasbah Square. The protest was first time in months held to defend social dialogue, condemn the restrictions on union rights and denounce increases in prices. Kasbah Square was filled with protesters demanding work freedoms, national dignity and improvement in social situation of the country. The UGTT, which is about 1 million members, had been a critical voice after the arrest of activists, businessmen, journalists, since President Kais Saied seized most powers in 2021 when he closed parliament. On to Europe now. Britain's Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt is putting the finishing touches to a budget he will deliver on Wednesday. He will do a series of interviews later ahead of the budget. DD India's London correspondent Ollie Barrett reports.
When Jeremy Hunt gets to his feet in the House of Commons on Wednesday, he will hope to deliver a budget that can help turn around the Conservatives' ailing polling numbers. They are 20 points behind the opposition Labour Party, according to many polls at the moment, in a year that we know that there will be a general election. He had hoped to try and do that by rolling out significant tax cuts in this budget, but it now looks like that will be more difficult to do than Jeremy Hunt had hoped. Towards the end of last year, it looked like he might have some so-called headroom running into the billions of dollars, which would potentially allow him to significantly cut taxes. But since then, the economy has weakened. It went into a technical recession over the last 2 quarters for which we have data. And interest rates for government debt have also risen, meaning that the government may well have less money to play with when it comes to tax cuts. And at the moment, the tax burden for Britons is higher than it has been for decades post the cost of living crisis and post the COVID-19 economic crisis as well. So less room for manoeuvre perhaps than Jeremy Hunt had hoped. One area that it's being speculated he may look at is so-called non-dom status, that tax status for foreign domiciled nationals who are resident in Britain. He may look at that to try and save some money. As I say, all of this is seen in the context of there being a general election in the UK at some point this year. We don't know exactly when it's going to be. The opposition Labour Party insists that many of the economic problems that the government and the country face at the moment have been created by what they call the economic mismanagement by the Conservative Party. It is a major political event in Britain, though, the budget on Wednesday that will take place in the House of Commons, and Jeremy Hunt's going to be preparing the ground for it over the next few days. Tax cuts is one of the key areas that we're going to be keeping an eye on to see if Jeremy Hunt does feel he has the money to roll them out or not. Ollie Barrett in London, reporting for DD India.
From a Malaysian hospital on Sunday and was flown home on a medical evacuation plane. The 87-year-old had a temporary pacemaker implanted on Saturday at a hospital in Langkawi after receiving treatment for an infection. The Moroccan government and UNESCO announced a new project to improve methods for predicting and preventing earthquake risks. The project comes after the devastating 2023 Marrakesh Safi earthquake that struck the Al Haouz province. Police have made 2 arrests in Berlin during their search for individuals wanted for their suspected involvement in Germany's notorious Red Army faction militant group. According to Berlin police, around 130 officers were on the ground in their search for suspects. A South Korean zoo threw a farewell party for Fu Bao, the first giant panda born in the country ahead of the beloved animal's scheduled return to China. Fu Bao, which means lucky treasure, has attracted a huge fan base ever since she was born in July 2020 at the Everland Amusement Park just south of Seoul. You're watching DD India Live, still to come on this edition. Donald Trump wins Michigan, Missouri, Idaho caucuses in a dominant show of force. Intense blizzards blanket California's Sierra Nevada with more snowfall forecast to fall over the weekend. And Turkey hopes that talks for a ceasefire in Ukraine will start soon. All that on the other side.
voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I am Tanvi Taneja. Former US President Donald Trump on Saturday easily won the Republican caucuses in Michigan. Trump trounced Nikki Haley, his last remaining rival for the Republican presidential nomination. The former US president also won the Missouri and Idaho Republican caucuses on Saturday. Trump beat Haley in all 13 districts taking part in the nominating caucuses, according to the state Republican Party. Overall, Trump won with nearly 98% support, which means 1,575 votes to just 36 for Haley. Trump won the primary convincingly on Tuesday, securing 12 of the 16 delegates up for grabs. He took all of Michigan's remaining 39 delegates at stake on Saturday. The former US president also won the Missouri Republican caucus on Saturday, according to the Edison Research. Republicans were also holding caucuses in Idaho on Saturday, one of the final contests for Haley to alter the course of the race prior to Super Tuesday on March 5th, the biggest day in the primaries, when 15 states and 1 territory will vote. With victories in Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, the U.S. Virgin Islands, South Carolina, and now Michigan and Missouri under his belt, Trump is now closer to becoming his party's White House standard bearer and a likely general election rematch with President Joe Biden, a Democrat.
It's about focusing and preparing and being effective in November. There's not a philosophical divide or, an issue divide on those types of things. This is purely on getting the party ready to win in November. The focus is on beating Joe Biden, electing a president, electing a senator, electing Congress people, and taking back our state house. That's what people are focused on.
Republican frontrunner Donald Trump and his last remaining rival Nikki Haley collided in North Carolina on Saturday ahead of a contest next week that could carry deep implications for the November's general election. North Carolina's primary is part of a Super Tuesday slate of 16 nominating contests that will bring Trump close to clinching the Republican nomination. It also is the only race that day that will be held in a battleground state that could decide the next occupant of the White House. Trump drew a large crowd for his rally on Saturday at a Coliseum in Greensboro. In his speech to supporters, he called himself a political dissident and focused much of his speech on immigration.
Not one more innocent American life should be lost to migrant crime. Got to stop it. It's a new category, migrant crime. We call it Biden migrant crime, but frankly, it's too long. So we call it migrant crime. I came up with that name because I come up with a lot of good names, don't I? But it's migrant crime. It's a whole new category of crime, and it's probably going to be more vicious than anything we've seen. On day one of my administration, I will terminate every open border policy of the Biden administration, and we will begin the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, because we have no choice. We have no choice.
Parts of California and Sierra Nevada were covered with more than 42 inches of snow following a blizzard carrying strong winds of 190 miles per hour on Saturday. The National Weather Service has forecast more snowfall over the weekend. Blizzard warnings have been issued through till Sunday for several regions, including the greater Lake Tahoe area, popular for ski tourism. Local authorities have warned against skiing in the area. Parts of the highway were closed due to dangerous conditions. Weather updates from across the globe now. Fire crews in Texas Panhandle battled spot fires on Saturday amid an increase in winds that are threatening to reverse progress on the fight against the state's largest wildfire on record. The deadly wildfire, dubbed the Smokehouse Creek Fire, has scorched more than 1 million acres of land, according to the latest figures from the Texas A&M Forest Service. Only 15% of the fire has been contained. At least 2 people have died and dozens of homes have been torched by the fire. Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan expressed Turkey's hope for the commencement of ceasefire discussions in Ukraine. He made this statement on Sunday at the end of a diplomacy forum in the southern city of Antalya. Fidan had also met his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov on Friday on the sidelines of the Antalya Diplomacy Forum. NATO member Turkey, which shares a maritime border with both Ukraine and Russia in the Black Sea, has sought to maintain good ties with both nations since Russia's invasion of Ukraine 2 years ago. Russian air defense systems, meanwhile, destroyed all 38 drones that Ukraine launched at the Crimean Peninsula early on Sunday after reports of Ukrainian and Russian social media which told of powerful explosions in the port of Feodosia. The Russian Defense Ministry did not say whether there was any damage or casualties in its statement. Officials say road traffic near Feodosia was significantly restricted. Traffic on the bridge linking the Crimean Peninsula to the Russian mainland was halted for a couple of hours before resuming. Russian and Ukrainian social media cited Feodosia residents as reporting powerful explosions heard in the area of the seaport and an oil depot at about 2 a.m. local time. At least 8 people were killed and 8 others wounded when a Russian drone crashed into an apartment block in Ukraine's southern port city of Odessa on Saturday. Rescue workers pulled 8 bodies out of the rubble and were still searching for more late in the night. According to Zelensky, the drone was a Shehbaz supplied by Iran. Russia has launched several thousand of these long-range winged drones throughout the war at targets deep inside Ukraine. Back to Asia, as trainee doctors protest enters into its second week in South Korea, over 30,000 protesters gathered in Seoul on Sunday to stage a mass rally. Demonstrations against the government are taking place as they plan to increase medical school admissions from 2025 to combat shortage of doctors in the country. Due to the mass walkout, emergency departments in major hospitals are facing difficulties, but the young doctors have refused the call from government to return to work.
The deadline was set by the government. So regardless of the deadline and pressure from the government, since we agree 100% of what our doctors say, we are going to continue to step forward as we thought.
Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense detected 21 Chinese military aircraft and 6 naval vessels around Taiwan on Sunday morning. Taiwan's Defense Ministry said that among the 21 People's Liberation Army (PLA) aircraft, 1 Chinese drone crossed the Taiwan Strait median line and entered the southwest corner of Taiwan's air defense identification zone. Taiwan sent aircraft and naval ships and deployed air defense missiles to keep a track on the activity of People's Liberation Army. Since September 2020, China has intensified its use of grey zone tactics by making increased use of the number of military aircraft and naval ships operating around Taiwan. The fifth leg of the joint training exercise between the armed forces of Japan and India called Dharma Guardian is being held in the western Indian city of Bikaner on Sunday. The annual exercise, conducted and hosted by both Asian countries alternately, is aimed at fostering military cooperation and improving the capability of executing joint operations. The two-week-long military exercise is scheduled to culminate on March the 9th. The Indian government recently released a fact sheet pertaining to the Household Consumption Expenditure Survey for the agricultural year 2022-23. As per the report, for the base year 2011-12, poverty lines for rural and urban India were Rs 789 and 967 rupees, while for year 2022-23, poverty lines for rural and urban India are 1,452 rupees and 1,752 rupees. The poor percentage dropped to 2% in 2022-23 from 12.2% in 2011-12. So that's it in this edition of DD India Live. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter and Instagram. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from my entire team in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.